The money sat there like a trap. 5 thick stacks of $100 bills wrapped in simple paper bands spread across the mahogany desk in plain sight. $50,000 just sitting there, unguarded. Victor Ashford had placed it there deliberately, the same way a hunter sets bait. He wasn't in his office. He was in the adjacent storage room, door cracked open just enough to see through, breathing shallow, waiting. His hand gripped the edge of a filing cabinet so hard his knuckles went white. This was the moment he'd been preparing for all week. Victor Ashford was 68 years old. He'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, climbing from a warehouse clerk to a billionaire through ruthless intelligence and an iron will. He owned 14 companies, employed over 40,000 people, and his name appeared on buildings across 3 continents. But he trusted no one, not his board members who smiled during meetings while plotting to vote him out, not his ex-wife who'd taken half his fortune and still called him cold, not his children who only visited when they needed money for another failed startup, and certainly not his staff. Over the past 40 years, Victor had watched people steal from him in small, cowardly ways: office supplies, petty cash, confidential files sold to competitors. Each theft reinforced his belief that humanity was fundamentally corrupt. Given the chance, anyone would take what wasn't theirs. Today he would prove it again. His new housekeeper, Maria Reyes, had been working in his home for exactly 6 weeks. She was in her early 50s, quiet, efficient, and completely unremarkable. She cleaned his penthouse 3 times a week, always arriving precisely at 8 in the morning, always leaving by 4. She was perfect for this test. Victor had done his research. Maria was a widow, her husband killed in a construction accident 3 years ago. She lived in a small apartment in the poorest part of the city with her elderly mother and teenage daughter. She worked 2 jobs just to keep them fed. She was desperate. And desperate people, Victor believed, always chose survival over morality. The test was simple. He'd left the money on his desk with a handwritten note underneath that read, "For deposit, bank transfer Monday." Anyone seeing it would assume he'd simply forgotten it there. Maria would clean his office at noon. She'd be alone. She'd see the money, and Victor would see who she really was. He checked his watch. 11:58 a.m. Footsteps approached from down the hall. Soft, careful footsteps. Victor held his breath. The office door opened. Maria entered carrying her cleaning supplies. She was a small woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing the simple grey uniform he required. Her face showed the deep lines of someone who'd worked hard their entire life. She set down her bucket and glanced around the room. Her eyes landed on the desk. Victor watched her freeze. She saw the money. From his hiding spot, Victor observed every micro-expression on her face. He saw her eyes widen. He saw her take a small step backward. He saw her hand drift unconsciously toward her throat. She was scared. Good, Victor thought. Fear meant temptation. Maria stood completely still for nearly a full minute, just staring at the cash. Victor could almost hear the calculations running through her mind. How many months of rent would that cover? How many medical bills for her mother? How many groceries? How many repairs to that broken refrigerator she'd mentioned to the building manager? She took a step forward. Victor's heart hammered in his chest. Here it comes, he thought, the moment of truth. Maria reached toward the desk, but her hand went past the money. She picked up the note. She read it carefully, her lips moving slightly as she absorbed the words. Then she placed it back down, precisely where it had been. She stepped back again. Victor frowned. What was she doing? Maria looked around the office nervously. She walked to the door and checked the hallway, as if making sure she was truly alone. Then she returned to the desk. She stood there for another long moment. Then she did something Victor didn't expect. She opened her cleaning bucket and pulled out a clean cloth. She carefully covered the money with the cloth, hiding it from view. Then she moved to the far side of the office and began dusting the bookshelves as far from the desk as possible. Victor's confusion deepened. Was she planning to take it later? Was she waiting for something? Maria worked quickly. She dusted, she vacuumed, she emptied the small wastebasket. But she never went back to the desk. She cleaned everything around it, giving it a wide berth like it was contaminated. After 30 minutes, she gathered her supplies. She took one last look at the covered money on the desk. Her face showed something Victor couldn't quite read. Was it sadness? Regret? Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her. Victor waited another 5 minutes, making sure she wasn't coming back. Then he emerged from the storage room, his mind racing. She hadn't taken it. Why hadn't she taken it? He walked to his desk and removed the cloth. All $50,000 sat exactly where he'd left it. He counted it twice. Nothing was missing, not a single bill. Victor sat down heavily in his leather chair. He felt something unfamiliar and deeply uncomfortable. But the test wasn't over. Maybe she was just being cautious. Maybe she was planning to take it next time when she'd built up more trust. Maybe she'd told someone else about it. People didn't just walk away from $50,000, not when they needed it as badly as Maria did. There had to be an angle. Victor decided to run the test again and again. He would leave money out every time she cleaned, increasing the amounts, making it more and more tempting. Eventually, everyone broke. Everyone. Week 2, Victor left $75,000 on the desk. Same setup, same hiding spot. He watched through the crack in the storage room door as Maria entered. She saw the money immediately. This time there was more of it, even more obvious. Maria's face showed pain, actual pain, like the sight of it physically hurt her. She did the same thing. She covered it with a cloth and cleaned everything else in the room. She worked faster this time, her movements quick and almost frantic. She kept her back to the desk as much as possible. When she finished, she practically ran out. Victor emerged and stared at the untouched money. What was wrong with her? Week 3, $100,000. It covered nearly the entire desk surface. It was an obscene amount, life-changing money for someone in Maria's position. Victor watched her enter. This time, Maria actually gasped when she saw it. Her hand flew to her mouth. She stood frozen in the doorway. Then she started to cry. Quiet tears rolled down her cheeks as she stared at the money. She didn't make a sound, but her shoulders shook. Victor felt something twist in his chest. He told himself it was indigestion. Maria wiped her eyes roughly. She walked to the desk on trembling legs. She looked at the money for a long time. Then she whispered something. Victor couldn't hear the words, but he could see her lips moving. It looked like she was praying. She covered the money and cleaned the room, but this time when she finished, she did something different. She walked back to the desk. She lifted one corner of the cloth and looked at the money one more time. Her hand hovered over it, shaking violently. She could take it. Right now, she could just take it and run. Her fingers brushed the top bill. Victor leaned forward, heart pounding. Maria pulled her hand back. She covered the money again. Then she opened her cleaning bucket and pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. She wrote something quickly and placed it on top of the cloth. Then she left. Victor rushed to the desk. He grabbed the note. In shaky handwriting it read, "Mr. Ashford, your money is not safe here. Anyone could take it. Please put it somewhere secure." Victor read it 3 times. She was worried about him. The woman who desperately needed money was worried that someone might steal from him. Victor sat down. The uncomfortable feeling in his chest grew stronger. He told himself he needed to see a doctor. Week 4. Victor left $150,000 on the desk, but this time he added something else. He left his laptop open beside the money, showing his banking information on the screen. Account numbers, passwords, everything. If Maria wanted to, she could take the cash and drain his personal accounts. She could steal millions. He watched her enter. Maria saw the money and the computer. Her face went pale. She walked straight to the laptop and closed it. Then she unplugged it and moved it to a drawer in the desk, out of sight. She covered the money as always. But before she started cleaning, she did something that made Victor's breath catch. She walked to the window and tested the lock. It was loose. Maria found a screwdriver in her cleaning supplies and tightened it. She was securing his office, making sure no one could break in. After she left, Victor stood at that window for a long time. The test was supposed to prove that people were inherently selfish, that everyone had a breaking point, that trust was a fool's currency. But Maria had taken nothing. Week after week, she had walked away. Why? Victor realized he needed to know, not to prove his theory anymore, but because he genuinely didn't understand. For the first time in decades, Victor Ashford was faced with something his money and intelligence couldn't explain. A good person. The confrontation. The next time Maria came to clean, Victor was sitting at his desk. She entered and stopped short when she saw him. Her eyes went wide with fear. "Mr. Ashford," she said quietly. "I'm sorry, I can come back later." "No," Victor said. His voice sounded strange even to himself. "Stay, please." Maria clutched her cleaning bucket. She looked like she wanted to run. "Sit down," Victor said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Sir, I shouldn't sit." It came out harsher than he intended. Maria sat, perched on the edge of the chair like a bird ready to fly. Victor looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the calluses on her hands, the way her uniform hung loose because she'd lost weight. "I've been testing you," he said bluntly. Maria's face showed confusion. "Sir." "The money, all these weeks, I've been leaving it out deliberately. I've been watching you." Understanding dawned on Maria's face, then hurt. Deep hurt. "You thought I would steal from you," she whispered. "Everyone steals," Victor said. But the words sounded hollow now. "Not everyone," Maria said quietly. "Why didn't you take it?" Victor demanded. "You need it. Don't lie to me. I know you need it." Maria looked down at her hands. "Yes," she said. "I need it very much." "Then why?" Maria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "My husband used to say that the easiest way to destroy yourself is to take what isn't yours," she said. "He said that the moment you steal, even if no one ever finds out, you know. And you carry that knowledge like a stone in your heart for the rest of your life." She looked up at Victor. Her eyes were clear. "I don't have money, Mr. Ashford. I don't have security. The only thing I have left is knowing I'm a good person. That my daughter can look at me and be proud. If I took your money, I would lose that, and then I would have nothing at all." The words hit Victor like a physical blow. "But you need it," he said again, more weakly. "Need and deserve are different things," Maria said. "I need many things. That doesn't mean I should take them." Victor felt something crack inside him, something that had been frozen for a very long time. "What if I gave it to you?" he asked. "Not as a test, as a gift." Maria shook her head immediately. "No, sir. I work for my money. I don't take charity." "It's not charity," Victor said. It's payment for a lesson." "What lesson?" Maria asked. Victor looked at the money on his desk. Then he looked at the woman across from him who had everything to lose and nothing to gain from honesty. "That I was wrong," he said, quietly. The real test, but Maria's story wasn't over. 2 days later, Victor was in his office when Maria knocked on the door. She looked terrible. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. "Mr. Ashford," she said, her voice shaking, "I need to tell you something." Victor gestured for her to enter. Maria stepped inside, wringing her hands. "I made a terrible mistake," she said. Victor's old instincts flared. "Here it comes," he thought. "The truth. Yesterday, when I was cleaning the master bedroom, I knocked over the lamp on your nightstand," Maria continued. "It shattered. I tried to glue it back together, but I couldn't. It's completely broken." She pulled an envelope from her pocket with trembling hands. "I looked online. The lamp was worth $8,000. This is everything I have saved."
"It's $3,000. I can pay you the rest over time. I'll work extra hours. I'll do anything. Please don't fire me." She held out the envelope. Victor stared at it. She had saved $3,000. Probably over years, every spare dollar she could scrape together. And she was giving it to him for a lamp he'd bought on impulse and never even looked at. A lamp he couldn't have described if asked, a lamp that meant absolutely nothing to him. But it meant everything to her because she'd broken it. And in her world, you took responsibility for what you broke. Victor realized in that moment that he'd been running the wrong test. The test wasn't whether Maria would steal. The test was whether Victor could recognize real integrity when he saw it. And he'd almost failed. "Keep your money," Victor said, his voice rough. "But, sir?" "The lamp was insured," he lied. "And even if it wasn't, accidents happen. You don't owe me anything." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." After she left, Victor sat alone in his office. He thought about his life, about the fortress he'd built around himself, about the tests and the suspicions and the endless, crushing loneliness of trusting no one. He thought about Maria, who had so little but gave so much, and he made a decision. 6 months later, the board meeting was about to start. Victor's children sat around the table, looking smug. They'd called this meeting themselves, gathering enough votes to force his retirement. At 68, they argued, he was too old, too out of touch. Really, they just wanted control of the fortune. Victor entered the conference room, but he wasn't alone.
Maria walked in behind him. She was wearing a business suit, carrying a briefcase. She looked terrified but determined. "What is she doing here?" Victor's oldest son demanded. "She's the cleaning lady." "Not anymore," Victor said. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "Effective today, Maria Reyes is the new Director of Ethics and Human Resources for Ashford Industries," he announced. The room erupted. "You can't be serious," his daughter shouted. "She has no qualifications," his son added. "She has the only qualification that matters," Victor said quietly. "Character." He looked around the table at his children, at the board members who'd smiled to his face while planning his downfall. "For 6 weeks I left increasingly large amounts of cash in plain sight where Maria cleaned," Victor continued. 50,000, 75,000, 150,000. She never took a penny. She could have stolen enough to change her entire life. Instead, she left notes warning me that the money wasn't safe. The room went silent. "I've spent my whole life believing everyone was corrupt," Victor said. "I tested everyone, and you all failed. Every single one of you has stolen from this company. Office supplies, insider information, clients. You thought I didn't know, but I always know." He turned to Maria. "She's the only person in my entire life who passed the test. So yes, she's qualified." Victor's oldest son stood up. "This is insane. We'll fight you." "You can try," Victor said, "but you'll lose. I've already transferred 40% of my personal shares into a trust managed by Maria. You can vote me out as CEO, but you'll answer to her." The implications sank in. Maria now controlled enough shares to be the deciding vote on any major decision. Victor's children looked at each other in shock. "Why?" his daughter whispered. "Why would you give our inheritance to a stranger?" Victor looked at her. "She's not a stranger. You are." He gathered his papers. Meeting adjourned. 10 years later, Victor Ashford died peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of people attended, employees, business partners, politicians. But the person who sat in the front row weeping openly was Maria. Victor's children sat in the back. They'd contested the will, of course. They'd lost. Victor had left them each a comfortable trust fund, enough to live well but not enough to waste. The bulk of his fortune went to the Ashford Reyes Foundation. Maria ran it. She'd spent the past decade using Victor's money to help people like herself. Single mothers, struggling families, honest people who just needed a chance. At the reception after the funeral, someone asked Maria how she'd done it, how she'd gone from cleaning houses to running a billion-dollar foundation. Maria thought about that question. She thought about the day Victor confronted her about the money. She thought about his face when she explained why she hadn't taken it. "I didn't do anything special," Maria said quietly. "I just knew that some things aren't worth losing, and your integrity is one of them." "But weren't you tempted?" someone asked. "Every single day," Maria admitted. "Every time I saw that money, I thought about what it could buy. Medicine for my mother, a better apartment."
College for my daughter. So how did you resist? Maria smiled, a sad, gentle smile. "Because I realized that if I took it, I would get those things," she said. "But I would lose myself. And then what would I teach my daughter? That stealing is okay if you need it badly enough. That your word means nothing. That honor is something only rich people can afford." She shook her head. "My husband used to say that integrity is what you do when no one is watching. Victor was watching, but I didn't know that. I thought I was completely alone. And I still did the right thing. Because that's who I am." Maria looked around at the gathering. At the people eating expensive catered food, networking, calculating. "Victor spent his whole life testing people," she said. "And everyone kept failing. Not because they were bad people. Because when you expect the worst from someone, that's usually what you get." "He taught me that lesson backward," Maria continued. "He expected me to steal, but I knew who I was. And his expectations didn't change that." She pulled a worn piece of paper from her purse. It was the first note she'd left Victor, warning him about the money. "He kept this," Maria said softly. "I found it in his desk after he died. He'd framed it." On the back, in Victor's handwriting, was a single sentence. "The day I started believing in people again." Maria folded the paper carefully and put it away. "That's how you pass the real test," she said. "You don't take what isn't yours, even when no one's watching, even when you desperately need it, even when it would be so easy. Because the hardest person to face isn't the one who caught you. It's yourself. Maria continued to run the foundation for another 30 years. She helped thousands of families. She never forgot where she came from. And every decision she made, she asked herself one question. What would I do if Victor was watching? The answer was always the same. The right thing. Not because someone might catch her, not because she'd get rewarded, but because that's who she chose to be. And in the end, that choice made all the difference.
Thanks for watching to the end of this story. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.